Hello, today I am going to read for you. So relax, lean back, and listen. Chapter 1. He worked all day and night, and finally the spell was ready. Even though he lived in the castle, his room was very small but quite cozy. The wizard did not walk the huge corridors of the palace very often. He didn't like to be alone in such a huge, luxurious house. The lonely old man felt very uncomfortable in those cold, pompous walls. Besides, he had a purpose to which he had devoted too many years of his life. He did not want to be distracted at all by luxury. So, after working for nearly 2 moons in his little room, he was finally quite close to his goal. Carefully lifting the vessel with both hands, the old man held it up to his eyes and looked intently at the result of his labors. It came out beautifully. It was just great. He reverently holding the bottle of fine glass in his hands, walked slowly but surely across the carpets to the wide terrace. No mistake could be made now. He no longer had the right to do so. He was too far gone. It was raining outside, which made the pain even worse, somewhere deep in his heart, and he was frightened, but at the same time he was so glad that he had succeeded in accomplishing such an important task. The old man, still holding the bottle in his hands, and despite the fact that huge drops had already soaked through his baggy clothes and sprayed grey hair, he was smiling as he looked at the flickering light inside the vessel. The old man carefully uncorked the cork and placed the bottle on the broad stone curb of the balcony. Then, stepping back 2 steps, the wizard recited the incantation again. A small light literally flew out of the bottle, soared upward very quickly, and began to fly away from the wizard's castle. This little magical creature knew that he had a special job to do, an important job. Go, my friend, follow him, help him. May the great powers be with you. The old man wrapped up his old cloak and, warming himself with the magical warmth, watched with tears as a tiny sparkle disappeared into the sky among the falling raindrops. This place was not familiar to him. The young man knew this is the name of everything around him, but he didn't know what this place was, how he got here. What frightened him more was that he couldn't remember his name, his past. He knew something terrible had happened to him, yet he could remember absolutely nothing. He had forgotten everything about his past, his whole life until now, even his own name. What made him wake up was a flicker. He could see its bright light even through his drooping eyelids. When he opened his eyes, he saw the blue sky, the green leaves, and he felt the soft grass on which he lay. He saw a tiny star hovering above him. With a misty gaze, he tried to discern what it was, or rather who. A small shining creature, like a tiny dragon or seahorse or butterfly, flew another circle over his head, soared up, and disappeared into the distance. He paid no attention to it, and was even glad that in general nothing foretold trouble. But he knew that not everything was as fabulous as it seemed. The young man looked around, sitting upright on the ground. There were blocks of stone of various sizes laying all around. He thought there might have been a building or an altar, but time had not spared it. All that was left were ruins. They fascinated him. The air was fresh, it was sunny and warm, with birds singing and the sound of the wind. Nature seemed to be in perfect harmony. He felt that he liked this place. It's a beautiful place here, it went through his head. He was a tall man, rather sturdy in build. His nose was straight, his forehead was high, his features were distinct and expressive, and it seemed to give him away as a very strong-willed man. The blonde, even short, cropped hair on his head was all in raw dust, but it gave him more masculinity. He wore a light satin vest and similarly tailored plain pants and light hiking boots. With a mechanical movement, he adjusted the sheath on his belt. Wait a minute, then I have knife. He drew a small dagger from its leather sheath. At first glance, it was an ordinary camp knife. The blade was sharp on both sides, and the hilt was of wood ornamented with simple carving that could have been done by any level of wood carver. The young man noticed the carved inscription at the base of the blade. His eyes, deep violet in color, stared intently, precisely at this engraving. Be worthy to bear your name, Egan. So my name is Egan. The joy of getting some information about himself quickly faded. After all, it might not be his knife at all. So what? What if it wasn't? Still, it's better to let that name be mine for now. Otherwise, people will think I'm crazy, he thought, if I ever get to meet people at all. Egan decided he would just walk down one of the forest paths. Surely it was possible to meet someone. He looked around the ruins again. About 10 paces away, a shoulder bag was laying in the dust. Egan examined its contents. He found a few things inside: an aluminium cup, a spoon, a clock, a pot of drinkable water, some dried fruit and dried meat, a handful of beans wrapped in cloth, and some other useful little things. And Egan realized that he had traveled somewhere before the terrible events he had forgotten had happened to him. Apparently lightweight. After all, there was no wagon or even a horse. Remembering the relative freshness of the water in the pot, Egan concluded that his journey had not begun so long ago. Except, where is my home? He asked himself aloud, as if hoping for an answer, but there was no answer.